Welcome back, everybody. It's another day, another journey. Um, this one was kind of a spur of the moment. This one I actually egged on. I'm gonna take the I'm gonna take the blame for this one. Normally, people come to me and say, "I want to be on." This one, I kind of said, "You probably should be on. You should probably be on screen." So, if she seems extra nervous, it's all my fault. I will take the blame for that one. I don't think she'll be. I think she'll be fine. But thank you guys for tuning in. Um, we have this morning Kim. I'll have her because there are two ways I'm hearing in my head to pronounce her last name, and it could be the A as an A or the A as a slightly O. So I'm going to have her say her last name, but please welcome to the show, Kim.
Hi,
Calvert or Calvert?
Calvert.
Okay. Ha!
You had it right.
I was batting 50, so I figure, hey,
You got it.
one of the two. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Just I have to brag. Okay, I have to brag on her behalf. She won't do it, so I'll do it. Um, Kim sent me a care package, and it was a probably one of the warmest jackets I've ever had. Uh, Christened it this morning. Man, that thing is beautiful. And a couple of gifts for my kids, and a hat and scarf and stuff from my wife. So it was great. Thank you again. So
Oh, you're
she's given
welcome.
me something more, and I think this is her way of saying don't go too deep into my past on the live. Might be a little bit of a buttering.
Trouble.
You're not gonna be in trouble. I promise. So I'll give you a minute or so. Give the folks a little rundown of who you are, and when we come back, we'll dive in. Okay.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kim Calvert, and actually, I wrote into Marlon's show, Straight Talk, for a couple ideas for the show, and I was wondering if anybody had ever had like Jesus and God come in and actually save them. I've had three situations happen to me, and I don't want to cry, but um, if it hadn't been for God, I wouldn't be here now. So I was raised Catholic and went to Catholic school throughout, like except for maybe first grade, but from second to to graduation, I went to Catholic school. So I didn't understand a lot of things and been praying to God for an answer and turned on TV and found Marlon and Corey and Franchot Pearson and all them. And um, I just want to help people. So hopefully I can do it today.
Awesome. Um, I had time to reread the things you typed out, so I have a.
I know it's
It's
a
a,
lot.
but it's exciting stuff. It's not just like. It leaves me unsure which way to go because there's so much there. I mean, I wish we had like hours upon hours because
Right,
it
it'd
would
be a
take that
week.
long. Yeah.
Right.
Um, so I'll start with this particular question. Do you think that your upbringing as a student in the Catholic religion stunted your growth in understanding who God was?
Definitely. Well, I shouldn't say definitely. I think it was that I didn't understand. They didn't teach us about like the Holy Spirit, and they didn't teach you about the Bible. They were
Hmm.
pretty much like when you went to church, you had a routine. You know, you had all the prayers that you said. You had all those songs that you sang and stuff, but they really didn't talk except the for the Last Supper and things like that. But I had a hard time under I had a hard time understanding everything because of the Ten Commandments and how we always prayed to the Virgin Mary. We always prayed to Saint Anthony when we lost something. Um, so we had all these different saints, and in the to basically pray to anybody but him.
Hmm.
It was just confusing. But I'm glad now because I'm like 57 years old and I'm so grateful that I did have that upbringing because I'd be totally different right now. I probably have like 12 kids. you know, um, I always was afraid of God. So I wanted to do good and I wanted to be good. And I think it helped me because I could have went off the rails. Um, Yeah, so I guess that's
So
it.
it was more of a rod of correction type deal growing up, and the ball and chain did indeed keep you grounded enough to not stray too far off the path.
Definitely. It was like, so I come from a Italian background. So my dad was strict. So I knew that if my dad didn't catch me, God sure would. So, um, so a lot of things, I'd be invited to places and I wouldn't go, or I'd show up. And as soon as I got that feeling that it wasn't turning out right, I'd leave. Actually even got accused a few times was, you always leave before the cops show up. And I was like, well, if you notice that, then why wouldn't you leave when I leave?
Yeah,
It
right.
was just common sense.
Um, you mentioned that you had encounters with um, God in a life saving type of manner in multiple occasions. Um, if it's not too far out left field, do you have one that you'd mind sharing?
You know what? I graduated in 83. I got married in 86, had a miscarriage in 80, 88, had my daughter in 89, had my son in 92, had a fire in 91 where I got the kid. I have a son and a daughter. My daughter's the oldest. And we had a fire and I got them out of the house and I realized that I had hedgehogs in the house. So I ran back in, and when I got it, I got a couple steps inside the house and all of a sudden there was a voice that yelled in a stern voice and it was deep. He said, "Don't stop, keep moving." Um, I couldn't understand like how smoke could fill up a room so quick. So I was able to take a couple steps, grab the fish tank that they were in, and get out. And when I got to my next door neighbors where my kids were, I was like, "Where's that man?" Because when I heard the voice in the house,
Hmm.
the thing that came through my head was, "Oh my God, my kids are going to hear me get yelled at by a cop." Like, how embarrassing is that? You should never go into, like, I know better. But, and they're like, "No, Ma." My daughter was like, "Mom, there was nobody there." My neighbor's like, "No, Kim, there was nobody there." 91, we went fishing we were going to go on a boat, go fishing. Went outside the break wall, which we had to get it docked. So they okayed for this boat to go on there. And it was only a 14-footer. And by the time we got out the break wall, he stopped the boat. And I noticed that there was water coming in the back, like all the way in the back. And I was like, "Hey, is that normal? Like there's water coming in the boat." And as soon as my husband at the time had seen it, he's like, "You get us out of here." As soon as he turned on the boat, it just sunk from the bottom, sunk from the back end down. And I didn't really worry at first because I'm like, no boat sinks. And when it popped up, there was a rope and I grabbed it. As soon as I grabbed that rope, it sunk to the bottom. My ex-husband and his friend was kind of like arguing who was going to get the life preservers. And I can't swim. I could doggy paddle, but I can't stay above water. So I started going for the cooler. That was the only thing in a shoe. I grabbed the shoe, it sunk with me on it. Um, and I went for the cooler and and it kept going out. And before I just turned around and I seen how far my husband was and his friend, and there was no way of me getting back to him. I went down, I came up 3 times. I went down. It was really super dark, really cold. This was like Michigan.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden, I was just like, "God, please forgive me of my sins. Take care of my family. Take care of my daughter, and I'm yours. Do what you want with me." And all of a sudden, I swear to God, the blackness turned into like I was looking into the sun. It turned super like just like I was in a bath. I felt like I could actually breathe. Um, and I was afraid to open my eyes because I thought if it's a sunfish, if it's a submarine, I'm going to have a heart attack. And then all of a sudden it turned black and I was being pulled out by my hair by my husband. and he had handed me the life preserver, and then we had to wait for a salvage boat to come pick us up. The third time was in 2016, I want to say, or 17. I didn't plan on it, but I'm bipolar, so I ended up feeling I was home by myself, and I felt like I was going to hurt myself, so I locked myself out of the house, and it was in the winter. So I ended up taking a walk, and then I got to this bus stop, and I just sat down. I kept hearing all this, like, you would just be people would be so much better off if you weren't around because you're just a bother, you know? And I started walking towards to the street, and now traffic's going. I could see across the street. I hear all the traffic. As soon as I get about a step off, I'm taking I got like one or two more steps before I get to the curb. I see a giant picture of Jesus standing in front of me. I could not see through it or through him. I couldn't hear the cars. He was there in front of me for a couple seconds, and then it switched to my son. I had my son's graduation picture in front of me. And that's when I realized, like, what are you doing? Like you know that those are two people that truly need you and love you, you know? So I stepped back and I came home, and that was it.
A lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
There's so many people that don't believe in hearing him intervene in some dire situations, like verbally intervene. And like you, I have audibly heard him intervene, and people can tell me anything they want. People can try and tell me I'm hallucinating or I'm crazy. Feel free to say that. I just know what I heard, and I know what was going on. Nobody can convince me otherwise. So I understand fully how that went. You had mentioned that, I'll play the devil's advocate for a little bit here. That when you were drowning, because I can't swim neither, and I'm not going near water. Anybody gonna get me to do that? There's a shower for that. That you experienced it being light again, and that you felt a little warm.
It was very just like a nice hot bath. Okay. Not hot burning, but just so
a warm bath. People will say, "Oh, that's hypothermia setting in," because that's the signs of hypothermia. I would give you that. I would give them that if you weren't that far away from your people and they just showed up and found you underwater just randomly. Because you weren't above water.
No, I wasn't.
Okay, so they couldn't just see you and be like, "Oh, there she is. We're gonna."
And I was sinking.
Right. So, what do you tell people when they bring to you these, what seemingly is logical issues to you about your stories about the voice in the fire, the voice in the water, and then the pictures at the crossway? What exactly? How do you go about telling people or trying to show them that this really, happened?
I don't tell people. Having a diagnosis of bipolar, they already think you're crazy. So I really, when I'm trying to get my point across, I brought it up. I brought it up to my family and stuff. But the audio, when I actually heard him during the fire, I thought maybe it was my guardian angel, maybe it was my grandfather, maybe it was somebody. Being Catholic, I wasn't raised that God's with God's with you personally, and it's okay to ask God for help, so I know what happened to me, and I know that when I was underwater, I could breathe. That's why I believe when somebody's in a situation and they're about to die, that they're taken out of it before they feel it. Because my biggest fear was drowning. I'm like, that has to be a terrible death, that and burning.
We share a lot in common.
Okay.
I wouldn't want either one of those to either.
No, so. Right. And the thing was I was trying to stay above water, and as soon as I gave up, and I gave up everything, I was like, you know what, I'm done. Like, God, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and take care of my family, and please take care of my daughter. And I know, like, why, like, I'm still here, because I had my son a year later. And this was 4th of July weekend. And there had been a drowning, there had been an accident of a man drowning that weekend. So I just know what I know, and if they don't believe me, they don't believe me, but I'm hoping somebody does. And if it can make somebody believe that God and Jesus is as real as we are, and all you have to do is ask for help. I mean, he's there, he's always there, but he's not going to help you unless you ask for it, you know? So.
What is the relationship like with your kids now?
They live in Colorado. So I'm really close with my son and my daughter. I talk more to my son. My daughter doesn't believe. She doesn't get the whole idea that God is like, well, if there's God, then why is there so much terrible stuff going on in the world? And why does this happen with the kids and all this stuff? And, it's like, well, and I'm praying to God that I can find the right answers to tell her. My biggest fear is that the end's going to come and they didn't come to terms. Like, okay, so my son believes in God, but he doesn't believe in the whole story. I'm like, you have to believe in the whole 9 yards, and everything I say is, oh, you're old school. Oh, well, just because. So I told him, like, what happened to me, like with the water, it happened to me all 3 times. It happened to me. And it's like, well, I can't, not that I don't believe you, but I can't put what I believe in something that happened to you so many years ago. I'm like, why? Like, if anybody told me a story like that, I would believe them, So it's just like that newer generation, my son just turned 30, my daughter's 33. And yeah, it's hard trying to get through to them, especially having money also being such a big factor in people's lives, and them working so much. Like, they don't watch the news, they don't know what's going on. So it's really hard.
Everyone has to walk out their faith. This is why I like the series being at the journey. I like the fact that everyone has their own encounter to have with God. Your story, as grandiose and awesome as it is, for some it will not compel them to the knowledge of who Jesus is. For some, it will actually just solidify for them that you have mental problems. And for others, it'll solidify for them that, okay, that's good for you, but that doesn't mean it'll happen. That for me, he never answers me, and blah, 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 blah. With people that have this concept of understanding, I don't think he believed God is who he says he is. He believes that there is something called God. Because if you did believe God who he says he is, the belief in Jesus would be a natural occurrence.
Right.
But because it's not a natural occurrence, it tells me a whole lot about who they really think God is.
Right.
God for them is some figure that either is or is not in charge of everything. And like your daughter believes, he allows a whole lot of crap that if he was a loving God, he would not allow, or even makes it happen.
Right.
The part that most of them don't ever get to is understanding that the place we live is not his domain.
Right.
We are living in the fallen, controlled by the the oppressors, the devil. His reach. This is his realm.
Right.
And I don't mean God doesn't have any say here, but this is not controlled by his nature. While he can have effect on all kinds of things, like you said, it's by request and by us acknowledging him.
Right.
It is controlled by the powers and principalities. It's not by the devil has this. Okay, this is the fallen world for a reason. Having your kids understand that is going to be more of a journey for them than it will ever be for you trying to show them through your walk. I mean, that portion of your walk. Are you still affiliated or deal with the Catholic religion at all, or are you on a different pathway now?
No, actually, we joined the Nazarene Church,
Okay.
and I I love it. The thing about the church was, okay, I wanted to be I wanted to become a nun when I was from 6th grade up, okay, and or actually younger than that. Got talked out of it by my mom because she was like, "You're gonna have to cut your hair. Don't do it," you know. But I I always felt comfort when I would went past a church, when I would see a convent. You know how you get those sick feeling when school was about to start, but when you see in a church, like everything went away. It was just calming. And um, like all my people are all Catholic, like my whole family's Catholic. Um, my sister actually founded like a non-denominational church and she started going. And what's funny is because I've been praying all for all this to happen and things are happening and it's like God's answering my prayers. Um, the thing about like what I want people that aren't Catholic to understand about Catholics is like they're not bad people. It's just that they were brought into a religion from their parents, which was brought into a religion by their parents, and that's what they learned. You believe what the priests say, you believe what your elders tell you. So you're not going to really nobody has time to read the Bible unless you really want to. I mean, everybody's always working. Um, so I just want, how do I say this? I just want everybody to know that it's the Catholic, it's the Vatican, it's the it's some of the priests. It's that's the problem. It's not the Catholics per se. It's just like me.
Not the
I
body.
exactly. I walked away from it because I went to church 2 to 3 times a week. And when I had my kids, I was like, I don't want to put them through this. I don't want them to have like what do I didn't want them to have the, the, the always in the back of your mind that you're doing something wrong and that God, like you're going to go to hell. You're going to go to
Hmm.
hell. That you can never, like, the priest never said, oh, you can make a mistake and say you're sorry. You have to come to confession for that. You
And
couldn't
if
do
you
it.
don't make it, you're dead.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
have to go through the sacraments because God forbid if you die and you don't have a priest there for your last rites, you're going to hell. Um, I had a we had my daughter was born, and the thing is, you're not supposed to take them out of the house before they're baptized. Well, my family was in from Texas, and we went over by my aunt's house. We had a car accident, and
Hmm.
up to the time my gram died, she was mad about that. She was just like, "You took her out. That's the reason why you had that car. Why there was that accident." You know. So it was a lot of pressure.
It
A
it
lot of
it's
guilt.
what law does to you. Law will always keep you looking over your shoulder, like something boogeyman type is gonna come, and that's how they treat God, as a boogeyman. Um, Now, I'm fully aware that fear of God is necessary because He can do what some of us fear He can do, and He can destroy both body and soul. Okay, but I think people forget what His aim is. That's not His aim to destroy body and soul. He just can. And that will happen if you don't turn to the knowledge of who He is. But once you turn to the knowledge of who He is, you realize that that particular part of Him is not reserved for people He knows. It's reserved for people He doesn't know. Um, your walk overall, coming from law to grace, what would you say is the most freeing aspect of that transition?
I'm so happy now. Um, I tell God I'm sorry every single day for the little things I do. Um, I always say I'm sorry, whether it's my fault or not. I apologize. I say I'm sorry for my kids because I feel like it's my fault that they're not in a better place. as far as like maybe our relationships are, and what they believe in, because I didn't push God and I should have, but that could have gone
Either
backwards.
way, yeah.
Right. So um, I always believe God put me where I'm supposed to be. So I never questioned any place I was, because I believe God wanted me there. And I believe that I was there to help people, not like, oh, well, why did you do this stupid thing? And why did you do that stupid thing? And how did you end up there? I mean, I've lived in a lot of places, but I've also helped a ton of people. It might not necessarily been my family, but they were strangers and I helped them. And that means I felt that I was there and God was telling me. Not okay, I want to rephrase it. Not that God's telling me like audibly, but just in my feelings. I felt like that was where I was supposed to be in that situation. And when it was time for me to leave, that's when I left.
I want to touch on that. You said that you wanted to rephrase that he didn't audibly tell you.
Right.
It reminds me of how he showed up a couple of times in the Old Testament. Um, it wasn't in the still small. It wasn't in the wind. It wasn't in the fire. It wasn't in the storm. But sometimes he'll show up in all of those. Like with Job, when he showed up, he showed up. Um, I don't think you should necessarily say that in your mind. Do you think this not audibly thing is him less speaking?
No, it's people
Okay.
listening and thinking it, oh, because it's like, oh, well, she's bipolar. Oh, so she hears voices, you know? I don't want them getting the wrong idea.
Oh, that's them. Let them. That's their problem, not a you problem.
Okay.
That's a them problem. This is what I
No,
tell people when you. This is one thing I want you to, because and I'm catching on to this. I want to make sure I get this through to you about something that he's trying to tell me to tell you something. Okay, this is him telling me to tell you this, not me.
all right, I listen. I will listen. I should write it down.
Okay. Um, the apologetics that you have um, is not where he's asked you to live. Um, I understand that you're, and I think part of that is a hint of guilt that you've held on to, or a worry that you think people might think, and what they think has influenced your behaviors now to the point where it becomes a normal thing for you to say, I'm sorry. Like you said, even when it's not my fault, I say, I'm sorry. Um, the reason why I think he wants you to get rid of that concept is that living constantly under the microscope of guilt is you not living under the constant microscope of grace. Because grace itself covers things that you don't even are aware of. Okay. Um, but the constant saying to yourself or to him that, oh, I'm sorry, it's almost as though you still hold on to the old God of the fear factor and trying to apply him to the grace God that you've discovered, and thinking that because he is fearful, that's why I have to make sure I'm staying right.
Stay on the right
The
track.
the process of grace is that regardless of you be apologizing or not, that will not give you more grace. The apologetics is not giving you grace, but it is keeping you in a constant state of, even though you say it's, that you're not anymore, but you're still there with the idea that if I don't stay apologized up and something happens, I'm in
Right.
fear of not being in that place of being right with him.
Right.
Do you think that you could ever be right with him with apologies?
Um, it's still I'm still on a I'm still like
Oh yeah, yeah,
learning.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's like a hard habit to break.
Very.
It's, you put it at God's feet and you let it go. I have a hard time letting anything go.
Mm-hmm.
I have a really hard time. I worry about everybody. I was worrying about you being cold.
As you should, because I am too. I hate being cold.
And I mean that's how I am with strangers. And I'm always I always want to do right, not because of it's not that I want to get points in with God. I This is what Jesus did and we're supposed to be like him.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to help. We're supposed to help our neighbor. We're supposed to have respect, and everything that's happening now is the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you have to make that the case, or he is that case, and so it'll happen naturally?
Could you repeat that or explain it different?
The whole idea of being nice to people and being, do you believe that that is something that you have to keep doing, or is that something that naturally occurs because he's doing it?
That's it. It comes natural.
Right. So then when it doesn't happen necessarily in your world, this is where your religion kicks in and you have to be the apologetic Christian, right?
Right.
What I'm trying to get to you is that the relationship that you have with God through the blood of his son is not a religion. And there is a thing called the spirit that can intercede on your behalf without you even being aware, because your motives are pure.
Right. I'm so
Um,
glad you said that.
so I want you to understand that the what we consider, oh, I sinned. Um, a lot of people don't understand what the concept of sin really is. They want to say that an action is sin when sin is actually a place of being, and there are action that result from being in a state of sin. So you can't really say, "Oh, I sinned." You were sinning. You were a sinner. You were in that state of sin. Once you've accepted and God has saved you, you're no longer a sinner. You're saved. But a lot of us want to think that we're sinners still, just happen to be saved, and there's no such thing as a saved sinner.
Right.
You're a former sinner. You were. You're not anymore. But holding on to the were will keep you from being where you're going fully. You're on a type of journey of a discovery. You're in a discovery. Um, and this is probably one of the better places to be in the journey with God. Is this? I consider that I'm a big guy on visionary things. Okay, so imagine yourself a captive animal for years,
Right.
and all you knew was a 12 by 12 space, and they finally let you out to be in the wild where you belong, and they take you out in the cage and set the cage down in the open space, and the cage walls drop pop, 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 all around you. Now you are free to go wherever you want to go, completely free, and enjoy all of the freedom that the world that he has opened up to you, it offers. His world, not the world, people. We're not talking about the
Right.
worldliness, we're talking about God's world.
Right.
And for a long time, all you do is walk in that 12 by 12. And if your hairy toe just flops a little bit outside the cage, you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry."
Right.
Okay. That is where you're functioning right now, in that 12 by 12. But there are no walls there.
Right.
If the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. And I mean free. Religion will keep you in that 12 by 12, even when it's not there anymore, long after, like you're seeing now, long after you've left. That 12 by 12 space will keep you bound to, you can't do, no, 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 no.
Right.
His encouragement to you is this: let him decide your boundaries, because he has all, period, all the plans set aside for you to have on his timing. This is not about you. This is not about your um, wanting something to take. He has a timeline.
Okay.
Um, and religion will constantly keep you, even with this whole "I am bipolar." That's man's diagnosis of you.
Thank you.
That's man. That's not God. That's not a God thing. That is man's diagnosis in order to keep you more and more bound by any means necessary. Um,
Didn't think about it like that.
you have just, and if you look back at all of the events that you were saved from, right? I'm going to count each of them down and show you how it equates to where you are now. Just hear me out. You're in the fire, okay? And the thing that you want to save most is a very innocent, didn't do anything to be in the fire creature. The creature can't do anything for you. It's just a creature. It's not like your children who can probably take garbage out later. Nothing. You went back in to save something that couldn't save itself. That is a nature of God. And he spoke to you in that fire, doing something that he was eventually going to do for you. Okay, saved you from that. You were in the water, drowning, and you were under. And the one thing that you could see when your human life was going to be over was light, only to be dragged back out and saved. He wants you to understand that he is light. And you see him, your life is saved. And whenever you believe that it's no longer his voice you need to hear, because the last thing you heard before you decided to try and kill yourself was, you're not worth it, you're not worthy, you're more trouble than anything else, be done. And he was the one that stepped in full force in front of you and said, I say differently. That's not my voice. That's not me. That's man. Your entire journey has been him trying to get you to understand one very pivotal point. There is no depth, no height, no dark, no light that you can go that he will not be able to reach. But you can't keep holding on to the monikers of man, the demarkers of man, the titles of man, the ways of man to find him. He is way more real than anything. He has way more power over so-called bipolar than any human or medication can have. We serve the kind of God that from creation made something out of nothing. Your walk here on out, as much as you might think you're fighting religion and the effect it had on you, I think you already know that that was bogus stuff.
Yeah.
In your head, you already know that.
Right.
But in your action, you keep it alive by telling yourself certain statements. One of them is, I'm sorry, because that was ingrained that you have to apologize and repent every time you get, otherwise you're not going to make it. Did you know that he said that he nailed all your sins to that cross? All.
I didn't know any of that until
Okay.
recently.
All. And if you're familiar with the word all, it doesn't leave an equivocation for some.
But right.
Okay? Not yes, there is no but in it. It's just all. And when he saves you, there is a transfer of you from your life to his life. From your life with the sorry, sorry, sorry to his life with the it's done. People want to keep staying at the foot of the cross. You don't belong at the foot of the cross. You get to the foot of the cross so you can realize what he's doing. You nail yourself there with him, and you leave with him. No one stays on the cross. He didn't stay on the cross. He didn't stay at the foot of the cross. He left the cross behind. The cross is our transition point. That's where you leave your guilt. That's where you leave the I'm sorries. That's where you leave the oh my goodness, oh my goodness. That's where you leave all that. Where you walk from here on out in is a thank you. Whenever you hear a voice trying to tell you something about who you were, you thank God for who you are. Because who you are is not who you were. It's talking about who you were. Oh, you used to be, and you used to. Okay, good, good. That's what I used to be. I'm glad you said that. That's who I used to be. But through Jesus, I am no longer. And thank you, God, that I am. He said it, and if He said it, it must be true. I think the more we jump in and say, okay, God, I accept your view of me, and I will live in that view, you will find how much less often you're even prone to stepping out. And when you do even get the inclination to, it's an instant thank you that I don't have to give into that. You don't even have to say, please help me not to. It's a thank you I don't have to. He said you don't have to. Um, your walk is going to be one of the most impactful for people without you even knowing it.
I hope so.
Um, because we have a similar state of in one aspect where voices tell you that you're not worth it. I've had that experience myself, and it was pushing me to end it, um, and attempted it, uh, but of course, it didn't. Obviously, it didn't work. Um, but the reason that these kind of things I think happen isn't necessarily, oh, God allowed it to happen. What about He allowed you to live?
Right.
And it is a big, big thing.
Something that has never been in me was blaming God for anything. Like,
Hmm.
I've always blamed myself for everything that's ever happened. I've never said, oh, why did God do this to me? Never did it. It's my fault. Um, that's been something that up to the time that my mom passed, that was the only time I ever questioned him, like, why? But it wasn't like I was yelling. I was just wondering, like, why? But I never got mad at God for it, or said, oh, you're not there. Or I've never, the thought has never even come into my head. My problem is now that I have, like, okay, like my kids or whatever, they're upset that, Ma, you have to change. You have to be more caring. You have to take care of yourself, which I do. I take care of myself, but I'm more happy helping other people, and they just see things and they're trying to make me change. I'm like, I'm not changing. This is how I've always been. I'm happy. Like, get off my back, basically.
Hmm. If you go back and watch this live, I don't know if you're seeing it right now, but people have pointed out. And I was gonna say something at the beginning, but it's becoming more and more prevalent as to when it pops in. Um,
Mhm.
every time um, he has something to say to you, that light on the screen starts to like flicker.
Oh, I don't see anything.
There is a massive sun ray right now to the right of your face.
Oh, it's the sun coming
It
through.
it it is a massive sun ray right now. Like when you were sharing, it was just subtle. But when you would mention him in a more profound way, it would you have to go back and look at it yourself to believe it, because it is insanely crazy cool, like really cool. Um, so one last question. Do you believe that you have a ministerial calling on you for the people who are like you or have had similar backgrounds to you? And I don't mean pulpit ministry. I'm talking about to talk to their heart about the the journey, even in the midst of your walk with other people that have been through it.
The idea has crossed my mind a lot. I've been praying on a lot of things about, I want God to put me where I'm supposed to be, and to tell me where I'm supposed to go. And that's when you had emailed me back and said, "Hey, I got a better idea. How about doing this?" I would have said, "No way. Thank you, but no thank you." But right off the bat, I was like, "Yes." And the thing is like, we've been waiting, what, a week? And normally I would have been like,
Freaking out.
yes. Like, I freaked out when we were doing the email, like I was sweating, okay? but after that, after I knew when it was going to be and stuff, like I was fine. I was calm. Like I'm not nervous. I just told my husband about this last night, and he's like, "Well, are you scared?" I'm like, "No, I'm not scared." I go because I trust you. And what I got to say is true. And if I could just help people, that would be like the best thing that I could ever do.
Hmm. Um, I do see this going somewhere with people who will hear it. Um, the reason I say that is because there are more people out there that the world has deemed um, insane, bipolar, all this stuff, when by reality it's um, a spirit that's been on them for a long time, that they've been um, told that it's unshakable. Um, your God has told you that He is God of all. Um, you have to embrace the fact that He said that. Um, man does not dictate where you go from here, He does. And you have quite the history with Him to expound to other people who are bound by both law and fear. And He didn't give you a spirit of fear, He has given you a spirit of power and strength, not timidity. And I'm glad that you accepted this invitation to be on screen. I know it was kind of a off the cuff thing, but reading through what you sent, I couldn't see myself just talking about it myself. That didn't seem. And the more I thought about it, all this happened in a matter of minutes, not hours. It was, yes, invite her. And I'm glad that this was a God thing, because you would have said something different if it was not. What advice would you give anybody going from this journey of extreme law to grace? If you had an audience of them sitting in front of you, what would you tell them?
Start reading the Bible. Like I'm only up to the Exodus, but I never realized like there's more, that He made more laws than the Ten Commandments, like laws for everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like with the Bible, you can get through life for anything. And to just ask God for guidance. If you ask God anything, He will answer. There's no such thing as a coincidence. Things happen because they're supposed to happen. We could talk for days, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many things that's happened to me, and I swear to God, this is true, and it would help people it would make your life so much easier, because nothing's changed for me, but I'm happy. And I told my girlfriend about it. I called her up. I'm like, I get it. I understand what you mean. I never understood that, and she's like, that's what everybody gets it in their season,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you will get answered, or ask for a dream, or remembering your dream, and you will get it. You will get that dream.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? If you ask for something and you don't get it, it was better. You're going to find out that it was better along that you didn't get it, because I fought those and went against it, and I was like, man, I should have listened.
Yeah. Our hard-headedness can keep us from a lot of blessings.
Very stubborn, right?
But again, thank you. I'll send you the link for this, okay? And when you see what I was talking about, I think it'll solidify for you that He was with you this whole conversation. That's why you were able to make it through.
Marlon, I want to thank you so much. I love straight talk, and I've been like, I found Too Strong, and then just everything that you help people understand things when it doesn't make sense, and you have a way of saying it with your words and stuff. And I kind of had, I can't lie. When I sent you that email, which I was kind of embarrassed because I kind of like started going off the rail, but I kind of, and I hesitated in sending it because I thought, what if he asked me to be on the show, you know? And I sent it. And then you said, hey, you want to be on the show? It's like, I guess this is God's way of saying, like, hey, maybe this is going to help one person. This would be wonderful,
Oh, I think it'll help more than one person.
Mhm.
I do believe it'll help way more than one person.
Yes.
I know personally about 5 or 6 people that have been said that they're bipolar. Heck, they almost diagnosed me as
Awesome.
bipolar.
Okay, there you go. I'm not gonna say that word.
Yeah.
I'm promise to you, I'm gonna try really hard. But,
Yeah, and this is for him. Okay, this is
Right.
this is accepting his view, not man's view, his view.
Right.
They wanted to. They had me as manic depressive in college, not realizing that my outreach and anger wasn't about my mind; it was my heart.
Right.
My heart was all messed up,
Oh, yeah.
and it start to affect my behavior in such a gross way that they thought, oh, he must be mentally off. No.
No.
I knew exactly what I was doing,
Right.
and I couldn't stand the fact that I was doing it. And that was a soul spirit fight, not a mind fight. And you're in that spirit fight right now between law and grace, and it's a great battle to be in because the end result will make you so much stronger for the rest of the people that you'll encounter. So,
thank you so much. And
you're
say hi to
welcome.
your wife and the kids.
I will. Trust me. I'm going to be wearing my jacket today because I got to go drop off my ballot. So
Awesome.
I'm going to go put that on right now and get warm.
I'm glad you like it.
For the rest of the people we'll be back on Too Strong tonight, 8 Eastern. Tomorrow, for those of you back on Straight Talk, we will be dealing with, let me make sure I get the one right, the dedication of the temple by Solomon. So that one's going to be a little bit more historical, but it's, it's always a different direction I go with stuff, but it's going to be more historical. So don't forget to tune into that one at noon Eastern tomorrow morning. Thank you again, Kim, and God's blessing on you for the rest of the week and your journey going forward. And same to the rest of you people out there in TV land, internet land. As usual, wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.